I think if I was stranded anywhere in the country and I needed help, there'd be two people that come get me: Adam Hoots and Kevin Rice, man. No matter where I was, this is probably a bad analogy. You might have to cut this out of your podcast. But if I was like a little kid and I had an accident, like wet my pants or something, like you're always looking for the adult that's like the most tender. I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go say, Adam, hey, I need some help with something.
I don't know that my kids would agree with that statement, but I'll roll with you.
Yeah.
This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do.
What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the Lean Builder, Hoots on the Ground podcast. Guest today needs no mention, Mr. Schroeder. How are you?
First of all, thanks for letting me be here. I appreciate hanging out with you and the audience. I always love seeing the LinkedIn posts. I told you before before you did the intro, I've been stressed and emotional and grumpy, but that ends today. That's how I've been, but it ends today.
Love it. I've actually tuned into a few of your podcasts recently, and yeah, I gotta say, I hate hearing Mr. Schroeder waste his time with the haters, man. Let the haters hate. You keep doing you, changing this world. You're just an amazing person doing wonderful things for the industry. I cannot thank you enough personally for being a huge part of my life and doing what you do over and over. Do not deflect that. Just sit here and own that for just a quick second while you take care of yourself.
Okay. Thank you. I'll say thank you. I really appreciate it. That means a lot.
Perfect. You actually taught me the only response for feedback is thank you. So good job. Way to take your own advice there. I became a tack master a couple years or so ago when it first came out. And one of the things that's been on my mind ever since I took that awesome course was a perfect schedule. And so I would love to dedicate a podcast with you, just trying to discover one, do you believe that there is such a thing, or could there ever be such a thing as a perfect schedule?
So I don't know that I used to think that, but I'm starting to. And so right now I would say yes. I'm probably wrong, but I would say yes. And and actually I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but it comes from some of the things that we've learned, and it comes from systems thinking and some things that I've learned recently from Hal Makeomer. And and I'm excited to tell you about it. I've even found the right place for maybe not I've found, but with pestering from you and Charlie and other people, I feel like I now grasp the right spot for CPM. And I do honestly believe, Adam, that you can create the perfect schedule. Now, like not God perfect, but like the best option of all the options schedule. Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm super interested to dive into that. And for those of you who just want the high level synopsis, I agree with you. So we will not be bickering or arguing back and forth for those of you that wanted that. But I am, and I think a lot of the listeners are going to be very curious how we get there. And maybe we start off by defining what a perfect schedule means, breaking or backing our way into how do we get there. Does that sound like a pretty awesome episode to you?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I was trying to adjust my light here. It didn't work very well.
You're good.
To see if I'm good.
I thought you were looking for your perfect schedule to break out your notes.
Yeah, I really do think, first off, my really cool first answer is that I think this is so corny. It's only partly true what I'm about to say, but I think a perfect schedule is a schedule that the team can see and make perfect together. So, like, I had a real, and this is me responding to haters, but it's a pertinent story. I went to a huge project the other day, and I was talking to him, and we were talking to him about how they could integrate and the integrated production control system. And we were saying, hey, this can align with your current CPM schedule. And I was like, see, you have three options. You can do this or this. And there was a point in the conversation where the person I was talking to interrupted me very rudely, if I might add, and said, the most important person on my project is the senior scheduler. I would fire every worker, every foreman, every trade partner I have on the project before I would get rid of my senior scheduler. And I was like, I didn't know what to say. I had to pause. Kevin had to sub for me for just a minute. Now I love senior schedulers. There's a heart for wherever your senior schedulers are. I love senior schedulers, but the most important people are the people, and like so. The other part of the story is I went in and I was talking to the senior scheduler. Good people, they're good people, and I'm like, "What's going on? What do you need help with?" Because I was actually asked to come talk about some of these things, and they're like, "We got a great plan, but it's just nobody's following it. Nobody's following it." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." I was honestly, Adam, I was excited. I was like, "Where? Tell me, where's the plan?" Because remember when you and I used to work at DPR, I can't remember which member of the management committee used to say, "If you can't see the plan in a certain amount of time, then you don't have a plan." And I was like, and they're like, "We have to open it up and email it to you." I'm like, "Well, email it to me." And they're like, "But it's not that simple. We would have to show you a synchro video and take you through the sequence and how it's built." And I'm like, "Then do it." And they're like, "But we would need 3 or 4 hours." And I'm like, "Okay."
Nobody knows what's going on. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they finally emailed it to me. And guess how many pages it was?
882.
Oh no, you way over. Actually, so with the parent and child activities, it's probably over that number. But just the parent activities in the schedule were 220 pages of 11 by 17. And I'm not even that critical of that. And the comment that I heard, and I did a post about it on LinkedIn, was it's all the people, the trades. They're just not following. We got a good plan, it's just that they're not following it, and they couldn't explain it to me. And I think I'm pretty sharp, and I know how to use P6. And I hope I'm not going on too long, but there's a little. Can I share something with you, Adam, real quick?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the people on the call can listen to this. This is a neat little thing. If you haven't done this with when you're consulting the different people, this is a really fun little deal. So it's like how to make a paper cup. Maybe you've done it before, Adam, but you say
I heard this on your podcast recently, I
you
believe.
did. Okay,
Yeah, but please, no, read it, please, because I don't know that everybody has. So please.
so I'll be quick. So step one, start. And if anybody wants to listen to the podcast, they can just do it. Start with your paper white side up. Fold the top right corner down to the left until the top side of the paper aligns with the left side. You should be left with 2.5 inches at the bottom. Take the 2.5 inches of paper long ways and fold it down so you have a square piece of paper to start and leave it that way. You could also cut it if you had scissors. Now use the paper as a square, fold it in half diagonally, and leave it that way. Step two, fold the top corner down to the baseline, crease well and unfold. Fold the bottom left-hand corner up to the crease line you just made on the upper right side. Once folded, please leave it there. Step three, now fold the bottom right-hand corner up to the opposite side in a similar manner and leave it there. Step four, fold the front flap on the top downwards and fold. Step five, now fold the back flap backwards in the same manner. Step six, open out, your drinking cup is finished. And so I don't even do it that fast actually most of the time. I'm like, okay, let me repeat it again. Do you have any questions? Let me repeat it again. And I'm like, raise your hand, who has a cup? And I've seen geese, buffaloes,
Everything but a cup.
I've seen everything before, and they don't get it. And this is the point. You'll love this, Adam. I'm like, you guys didn't follow my plan. And I'm talking to construction people. I'm like, you didn't follow my plan. I've got a plan. It's right here. And I repeated it 2 or 3 times. You didn't follow my plan. And they're like, it's your fault, Jason. You didn't explain it. And then I'm like, all right, get another piece of paper out. And I show pictures. I show, do this.
Do you have the pictures? Could you pop them up for us?
If I shared my screen, I don't know. Is it possible to share the
Yeah,
screen?
if you hit present and share screen, yeah,
Okay.
pop them up.
Let me do that.
What those look like.
Yeah, I'll do that right now. And to build on it, then what I'd like to do is say, if anybody was listening to this podcast and like you wanted to actually go through and see if you could do it, try to put the cup together based on just on my instructions and see how far you go. And if you can't, and you didn't get the cup, I want you to hear ringing in your head, hey, it's your fault. You just didn't follow my plan. So I'll hit present.
I'm
I'll go,
sure we've all said that a time or two. The plan was written so clearly. How come you didn't just follow the instructions?
exactly. So I'm gonna hit share here. Can you see my screen, by the way?
I can now, yes, sir.
Okay. So then I say, all right, take your paper out. Now fold the top corner down. Then you can cut the excess off. You have a triangle. Fold the right corner up to the opposite side. Fold the left corner up to the right side. And then fold the front out and fold the front back. And now you've got a cup.
Hmm.
And so the key thing that I want to mention here is that this is like everybody that's on gets it when I show them the pictures, like everybody. And then I'm like, what happened? And they're like, we could see it, of course. And I'm like, that's exactly it. So in my mind, when I used to get told, I remember working with an assistant superintendent once, that I had a tax plan that I had made but by myself, which is not the way to do it with the last planner system, but I made it by myself as a template to give to the trade partners. And I was like, here's the start. Now I want to collaborate. And he railed on me and he was like, you cannot publish a schedule that's not finished 100% perfect. And I'm like, what? I'm going to go make it perfect with the trade partners. And you make sure that schedule's finished and then you show it to them. You don't let them have even the slightest hint of weakness. And I'm like, what? And I was just a naked kid back then. And so I just ignored him and went on. And we made that, like the trade partners dove in with me, we made that tack plan. So I think first of all, the perfect plan schedule is one that you can make perfect with your people. And so that's my first answer. And then we can go on from there whenever you want. But
Yeah, I love what you said, and I actually wrote it down. You said a perfect schedule is one that a team can see and make perfect together.
yeah.
I think that's huge. There's a lot to unpack in that statement. But what else? How else do you define a perfect?
So I've been thinking a lot about this. I've learned something lately, and it deals with system design, which you and Hal taught me about, and then roadblocks. And I really should. I don't know if we're in the mood to keep visualizing stuff, and if I should do that or not. But
It's the best way to learn for me.
then I'll just share my screen again if you don't mind.
Go ahead, baby. The only thing I don't like is it makes us so small. I just love seeing your face.
Yeah, you're so sweet. I just love you, man. So, can you see my screen here, Home Slice?
I can.
Okay, so I'm in Canva right now, and this I was exploring, and when I say meaning I was trying to put together industry knowledge. I don't ever come up with anything myself, but I was trying to explore the difference between roadblocks and constraints, and actually put some data behind it, so it isn't just believe Jason. And I realized that there is the road ahead, and then there's the system design, which is the train. And so I ask people a lot when they're being introduced to tech planning. I'm like, if I said that in construction we break up projects into zones, would you say that's wrong? And everybody that I've ever asked is like, no, that's how you build it. You break up the building into zones. And I'm like, okay. So if I told you then we get trade partners at the crews in a sequence and we run them through those zones in a sequence to build a project, would you argue with me? And they're like, Jason, no, that's exactly how you build a project. And I'm like, that's tax planning. That's it right there. And so what I realized in looking at this visual, and I hope that it comes through, is that most projects, if they can't see with the last planner system, they can't see the road ahead. And if they can't see the train, they can't see the system design or their train of trades. And so this isn't a criticism. This is what they've been taught. And I'm showing this for those of you who are listening. I'm showing a train and I'm showing the tracks. And ahead of the train, I'm just showing a 5-foot window. And my question to you, you're an evangelist of good scheduling, but I'll ask you as in a form of a demo here. How would you like to drive a train or a car 80 miles an hour and only see 5 feet ahead of you? Not a great idea. Or another analogy, Adam, is how would you feel if you had to drive 80 miles an hour with a blindfold on and I was verbally telling you directions? How would you feel?
Show me some pictures, please.
Yeah. So when we implement the last planner system, and there's more to it than this, but just from a simplicity standpoint, when we implement the last planner system, we can see out ahead and remove those roadblocks and make commitments. And when we have a train of trades and zones, and when we've actually looked at the system, now we can see the train. So if I was a conductor, I wouldn't just want to see a quarter of a mile out ahead of me. Every now and then, I would walk the train, look at my cars that were coupled, the speed, make sure everything was maintained right, make sure that I'm going. So in construction, and you know this just as well as I do, some things are ahead of the work, and some of our speed in construction is a part of the system design of how we package and enable trades to go through the work. And so I'll go to this little graphic up here. This is what's hit me recently, is that flow really equals trade partners going the same, working on the same, from the same plan that's visual, going in the same direction within their phase, right? Buildings might have multiple phases or large areas, moving the same sequence, providing the same amount of value, meaning the train cars have the same amount of value, doing the same amount of work, meaning your zones have the same amount of work, going the same speed, the same distance apart. And this was revelatory to me because now that we know this, we can really partner with trade partners and get the system design right, that systems thinking that you and Hal always talk about. And so perfect, if we're talking about perfect execution or like perfect people, no. But a perfect plan that accommodates, as good as they are and as perfect as human or great as human beings are, they're imperfect people, imperfect crew sizes, and imperfect industry. I do think the plan can perfectly accommodate all the variables now that we know how to design the system. And so that's kind of my aha moment that I had the other day, is that so to answer your question more specifically, if you, let me just say this high level. If you have a tact plan that is highly visible, that levels the wagons, levels the zones, it tells you how many zones you should have, and puts you on attack time so you're going the same speed, the same distance apart, you have a train of trades that can win. And now you add last planner, which you can say they're one and the same. It's fine with me. But now you add last planner with the huddles and the collaboration and the pull plans, weekly work plans with the trades and the foreman. Now you're seeing as a group and you can see where you're going. And then let me pull in Scrum and CPM now. You take Felipe's Scrum book, and now every day in your huddle system, after your afternoon and morning worker huddles, you come into the office and you bring your roadblocks. You do that with your project management team on a Scrum system and on a Scrum board. And then here's what's going to blow your mind, Adam. I think you'll love this. And you all taught it to me. I'm just putting it together. That's all Jason does, is puts things together that I get taught by other people. But CPM has, Hal told me the other day, he was like, Jason, CPM used to be done by hand. It was high level. And when computers started to do it, it would take all night to calculate it. And so we really calculated the critical path in larger activities, summaries, or phases. And he was like, and it worked. And then when you get such computing power, they went from phases to activities. So it finally hit me. A tact plan has multiple phases. It's just like trains driving down the track with buffers in between them. You can, and it's valuable, track the critical path through your phases, but not through your activities. And so if on a project we had each phase, each train outlined with the right buffers, and if somebody wanted to do the algorithm for the critical path through the phases, it is helpful to know, hey, interiors is more priority than exterior, or this from a high level, because it actually tells you, it's saying what train is most critical to get to the next station. And so my answer to you, I've been excited to say this, is CPM at a high level, tracking through phases, tact governing all production through the phases and governing the train and the tracks. Last planner bringing that visual environment, collaboration and respect for people, and Scrum guiding the office to clear the way with resources. That, in my mind, implemented well, is a great scheduling system, and I would say executed, it would yield the perfect schedule. Meaning it's the perfect plan to accommodate an imperfect world.
I'm with you. I think you just said a lot there. I want to unpack some of it. And something that just dawned on me about systems thinking and packaging work as we establish these trains, which make up phases of work. You are, in fact, setting up a system for the project. A train is a system that's going to flow through an area.
Amen.
And so, how you connect those systems together, again, all of this has an impact on where we're at. And I think I'm with you as you start talking about we can design a perfect system, but executing that system, that's a whole nother level of thinking that is likely not possible.
Yeah, and I think to your point, we would have to get back to definitions to, and I don't know that, I don't think I'm right about this, but like to me, a schedule is an interface for human beings to do what they're supposed to do and make decisions. And again, I'm going to go back to a schedule. It should be visual and should show you the things that you have to manage and measure. If somebody said, can you make the perfect schedule that just needs to push, which you didn't say, but push down people's throats and you can project it months out ahead? No, I don't believe in that. But I don't believe that's what scheduling is supposed to do. I think scheduling is supposed to create an intended path, clear that path, and then enable the team visually to adjust either that path or within that path as they go. And so the reason why I would say it would be nearly perfect is because I have actually done the check, Adam, which doesn't make me right. I'm just saying I've done the check of, does a tact plan with Last Planner and Scrum enable you to see what direction you're going, the sequence, the value you're adding, the amount of work in each zone, your speed, and the distance that you are from other trades, and the resources that you need? Yes. And so I can't find yet a single part of the system that you and Hal always talk about that isn't measured within the scheduling format that I'm talking about. And so to me, if I can see it, manage it, measure it, it's perfect because it's perfectly doing what it's designed to do. It's enabling the team to adjust for an imperfect world. So if somebody was like, no, scheduling is here to project exactly what we're supposed to do. No, I don't believe in perfect schedules in that definition. So I'm talking too much. Go ahead, Adam.
No, thank you for clearing that up. I just want to add the other note that I took away from what you said. And I'm like super excited right now because I think this is the first time publicly I've ever heard you say anything good about CPM. And maybe not good, but at least the fact that there's actually a place for it. I can't wait to brag to the world about that. That right here live, Jason complimented CPM. Am I getting a little carried away?
That's a little carried away. We're gonna invite Uncle Earl to Thanksgiving dinner, and we found a way for him to not be offensive. But if we said we wanted him there, like that's inviting someone out of desire or obligation are two different things. I'm just kidding. My candid answer, I'm just teasing with you, is that if CPM tracked the critical path through phases, through phase summaries of trains, I would appreciate it. I would say thank you. I would say that is helpful data, and I would be very appreciative, just candidly. And like when I go visit like these huge data center, and you've been to more than I have, but I'm like, these are like $1 billion projects, right? Like tomorrow they could switch their, not tomorrow, but like tomorrow they could start tracking the overall phases. So like in a data center, there's like at least 15 key trains inside the project, and then there's 4 or 5 buildings, and then there's the central utility plant and a number of other things. A CPM schedule tracking those trains, the summaries of those trains through the trains or through the phases, showing us if the central utility plant is going to actually align with the production of the core or the H or the data halls or the whatever, is a valuable thing. And I would say thank you. And so if people
Absolutely.
if people see that as a way to keep using CPM with Tact, Last Planner, and Scrum, I would be all about it as long as it doesn't go too deep. But back in the Adam and Jason DPR days, the PSPP effort taught us to not go too deep anyway. So I'm transitioning to a CPM with the critical path calculated through individual activities is what is hurting our industry. If we could pull it back to the right level of detail, I think we could do something with it. So there you go. And thank you
Yeah.
to you, Charlie, and everyone who's been pushing me and everyone else to think deeper and finally find the place. And I really appreciate that.
No doubt. Thanks for being open minded and again, continuing to search for truth. And we won't kick Uncle Earl out of Thanksgiving dinner just yet.
Yeah. Earl,
But so,
once you get to know Earl, he's an okay guy. Like
right. Yeah. He's had a couple beers. It'll be okay.
yeah.
So you jumped all the way to the how to, I guess. You put that system together, which I love that. But let's study the problem a little bit deep. What is a perfect schedule? How do we define what a perfect schedule is?
We've been thinking a lot about that. In my mind, it centers right on Nicholas Modig's book, This is Lean. It's anything that finds the flow unit. And so it's an interesting thing. I've been poo pooing the idea that you could tact design or that you could tact other things. I know that every type of building and construction you can tact, but I've been like not really into it. And Kevin Rice has been pushing me to think deeper. And we actually found that, and I don't know if you can see the board behind me or not, if I should
Yeah.
draw. I can't. Okay. I
Yeah.
can. Thank goodness I'm wearing pants.
About time, dang.
There's a whole lot more to this stuff. So I'm just sharing for all of the cool homies out there. The schedule, if it's time and by location, this is right, but it's not defined properly. If you actually dissect Nicholas Modig's book a little bit more, this can be the value adding unit or the value receiving unit on the left side. And then what we want to see is the flow unit in a diagonal in the middle. And this is the pattern. The most important part to me of a perfect schedule is that we can actually see the flow unit. So I just want to look at this with you for just a second, right? If you, let's say, actually, I won't even call it a flow unit. I'll just say what's flowing. Okay. If you were talking car manufacturing, you would see the car going at a diagonal in the middle of the schedule. On the left, you would see the value adding unit, which are the resources, the tools, the people, and the equipment. It happens to be that in construction, you have time by location. And a location, the zone, ends up being not a value adding unit, but a receiving unit. Okay. And then the trades are flowing. So I used to think it was just location on the left. But as we start to actually, and we had some opportunities recently to schedule commissioning in large data centers or design. Like in design, we have the design steps by design phase on the left, which is the value receiving unit. Or if you have it in commissioning, you'll see the equipment through the commissioning process on the left, which again is the value receiving unit. Any schedule you ever have will properly shows you flow and is a perfect schedule because you can measure flow as a team, which a perfect schedule is the schedule is perfectly doing what it should be doing, which is allowing you to manage and measure the project, right? You have time on the top and then the value adding or the value receiving unit on the left, and then showing what's flowing in the middle at that typical tacted diagonal. And so I have recently learned and have been really just stoked. Commissioning, design, car manufacturing, hospital, construction, it all fits into this format. It is not time by deliverable like our WBS training that we received a long time ago. It is always time by the value adding or the value receiving unit and the flow, showing what's flowing in the center. It's still time and space. It's still the visualization of time and space. It's just we're adding the component of, is that space adding or receiving value? And so as soon as we landed on that accidentally by merging what Nicholas talks about and what you and Hal always talk about, we were able to see this pattern. And literally, Adam, we have ever since we've seen this, we have never come into a situation that can't clearly show flow for what should be flowing in that production system. And so that to me is like one of the most important components. Was that helpful or no?
Yeah, it's genius. I think what you're telling us is if we're going to design a perfect plan or a perfect schedule, then we have better understand what it is that we're flowing through the process, how we're adding value to the process. And the more, again, when my first comment when I looked at what you draw is, man, that's a burn down chart. And essentially it's, hey, we have all of this work to turn over. And as we're turning it over, it's a burn down chart. And man, that's, yeah, you got my brain turning in a million different ways as always.
What it would be neat is like anytime you're doing scheduling, Adam, and you know this, I'm just saying, if you just experiment with it, write it on paper, like it makes a lot of sense. And there's some science and some math behind this, and it's really interesting. But I like what you said is we have to see what's flowing. Like that's it. And it's funny, we were talking to a modular home builder. They build two, I don't know what they call them, but two module units or four module where they piece them together, and they're really nice homes, and you can stack them. You can make individual things, individual residences, homes, or you can build multifamily. And they were like, we could either make the trades move through these things as we're manufacturing, or we could put the trades stationary and move the units through them, either one. And so there's some flexibility. It's either construction, know that your value receiving unit is bolted down, or your value added unit is bolted down, or you can have a mixture of both depending on what's going on. But the bottom line is, like you said, whatever you decide needs to be flowing has got to be shown in that diagonal, because and the reason it makes it a perfect schedule is I can perfectly see when I'm stacked, when I'm paused, when I have an inefficiency gap, when there's a delay. I can perfectly see my buffers at the end. It's genius. And I've learned recently, and I'll be quiet after this, tact planning is a visual system. Scrum is visual. Last Planner is visual. But being visual is what makes it great, because it does its job, so then we as humans can see and do our job. And I'm just convinced that this is where we need to go. And so until other types of scheduling can make our planning visual, it's just not going to leverage the team. And you talk about teaming all the time, and it's just such a huge component.
I've got 3 points out of you so far. I'll summarize them real quick and then maybe a couple more from you. I'd love to expand on these thoughts. So far, I've got, and I loved the first one. Again, so a perfect schedule is one that a team can see and make perfect together.
Amen, brother.
A perfect schedule has the correct sequence. Right? It has the right flow of trades. And then you said the perfect schedule will focus on the flow unit, understands what the flow unit understands how to move and prioritize that. What else are we missing or not thinking about here?
To make a perfect schedule, I hope this isn't too far off, but what I think that candidly, the collective of us, including me, is missing is the systems thinking component.
Yeah.
Period, full stop, in the story. Meaning, until you and Hal forced me to think of it like this, I didn't have an understanding of what was going on. I would say, hey, let's get some last planner, some pull plan. I need a little bit of what it is at the time, but it really works as a system. And I had this, and I hope I don't take the description of this, but I was actually got a little bit of inspiration based on the thinking about this, is that it's like the human body.
Yeah.
And you can you can, and I did a sketch of it, I don't have it handy with me, but you can take tact, last planner, scrum, excuse me, visual systems. You can take accountability systems that we always talk about in the IPC, visual environments. You can take respect for people, all of these things, and liken them to a human body and to the systems, right? Our bodies wouldn't function. I'm preaching to the choir here. Our bodies wouldn't function if we just had a circulatory system, or if we just had a respiratory system, or an endocrine system, or a lymphatic system, right? And so I get the question a lot, what would you use, last planner or tact? And I'm like, that's like saying, do you want a respiratory system or do you want a circulatory system? Like, they work together. And actually, there's pretty close comparisons to how these lean systems act in a similar way that the human body interacts. Like, from a structural standpoint, you have your skeletal system, your muscular system, right? Tact provides that structure, order, and flow, like the structure behind it. And then if you think about it, last planner is a lot like your nervous system. Like it is what connects everything and gets everything working together. Yes, you have the structure. Yes, the trades have to work within that structure. Yes, they have to work within that flow, but they all have to work in unison. I can't have finger or an arm, like an arm going doing something. Everything needs to work in unison. And so the last planner system is really what organizes that central nervous system, right? I can keep going on and on. And so there's two parts to this. And I do believe that we almost have it mapped out. And Adam, you've seen it, the integrated production control system. I'm making some modifications to that, but it isn't just TACT, or it's not just last planner or Scrum. It's TACT, last planner or Scrum. It's visual environments. It's all of it put together as one body, just like the human body. Even the references in the Bible of, does the arm say to the foot, I have no need of thee? It's a really neat analogy. The second part of this, which I don't think answers your question directly, but we can cut it out if it's not great. But I am more convinced than I ever have been that the problem is the system, not the people. Meaning this, and I want everybody to hear me on this that's listening to the podcast. Please, I'm begging you, if you've ever heard anything Adam or I have ever said, if I've ever been a profitable servant to you thus far, please listen to me now. You could take the best superintendent, trades workers, and trade partners into a project, and if you don't have the right number of zones, there's nothing they can do to overcome that. If you send them into a project and you don't have your zones leveled, there's nothing that they'll do to overcome that if they can't change that. One more. If you you could send demigods down there. You could have The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, like, as a part of your team. And if we don't have the wagon cars, meaning the crews, leveled, meaning there's one slow car or trade or crew, you will never faster than that car. And so we are beating, not you and me, but our industry is beating people up and berating them and trash talking them. It's their fault. They won't listen to our schedule and they're just horrible. And I've never seen a generation that doesn't give a crap more than this generation. And yet it remains that we are finishing projects in spite of our system failures. Meaning that it's actually the opposite. I'm preaching to the choir, Adam. I know that you believe the same thing, but like, those trades are not only not the dummies that our industry says they are, they're actually our saviors. Like, they're the ones finishing it in spite of our crappy systems. And so we have got to realize, and you do, Adam, I'm not saying that, I'm saying in the industry, like, get the right number of zones, use Little's law, use the law of bottlenecks, all of these things that you taught me, use Kingman's formula, use the law of variation, get in there, level your zones, level your wagons, get the right number of zones, get the right production rhythm, get the right plan. And then, and only then, if we had that system and then the trades didn't perform, then maybe in some odd world you could say something. But until then, it's us. It's the system. It is our fault. We have got to fix it. And we do a lot of talking about listening. I think it's great. And I love Jen and Jess's podcast. I love yours. We do a lot of talking about the collaboration. We need that. We do a lot of talking about visual environments. We need that. We do a lot of talk about psychological safety. Those are probably the most important conversations we could have. And I will add to it, even if all of those were fixed, if we don't fix the system that those listening, collaborative, loving, psychologically safe people fit into, we will still never make it anywhere. And so I see myself as talking about psychological safety and listening and respecting collaboration, and also supporting and cheerleading on the rest of you who are doing more of it than I am. I see myself as trying to say, all right, when these trustworthy, loving, kind, vulnerable, collaborative, wonderful, listening people get to the project, will they be received into the right system? Last thing I'll say is, if you're going to clean up a mess, you need the broom and the dustpan. And so the broom is all of these wonderful lean cultures we're talking about, and the dustpan is the system. And we need both of them to work together. It's not either or. And so what I want people to hear is, if they ever go implement pull planning and don't win as much as they want, or they're talking about collaborative environments and they're still having problems, or don't give up You might have the lean culture because you've learned from Adam and Rebecca and Miss Jen and Jesse and everybody. But the next step, or whenever you're able to do it, also we have to fix the system, because you could put perfect human beings into a faulty system and still not make it work. And a perfect schedule in my mind is where you merge the lean culture with a lean system. And that's probably been the biggest thing on my mind lately. Sorry for ranting.
Never be sorry for ranting. You're always welcome to do that. You let me know anytime you want to go on a rant. I will be here to listen, that's for sure. I'll tell you, as someone who knows the physical system of the body, the health systems very well, I love the analogy. I love the comparison. It's so very true. I will tell you that it gets even more interesting when you start figuring out how systems work together. I think when I first heard about systems thinking, I knew there was something there through conversations with you, with Hal, with Rebecca, with Carla Saplisky, Terry Hare, like all of these people. It's starting to become more clear, but it's still a little fuzzy. There's really a whole lot to unpack with systems thinking and how we can utilize that knowledge to make advancements in construction. And I think that's a whole nother podcast.
Yep.
I love that we got into systems thinking though, because if you do want something perfect, you have to understand the entire system,
Yep.
and you have to then understand what levers to pull in order to get it working in the same direction, or to be all working together.
Amen.
The body's an interesting comparison because you've got systems that are working with systems, right? So what is the system that has everything working together? I
And
hear what you. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was even with CPM, like let's liken it to and I'm not saying it's perfectly aligned, but let's say it was like your immune system can either protect you or it can attack you. And I'm saying CPM in the right format can help you and protect you. If it goes too deep and it starts doing things it's not supposed to be doing, it can hurt you and attack your body. And so some of those are really nice, but I think you're about to say the analogy might not be perfect, but go ahead.
I would never say that. What I was getting ready to say is that I love your perspective. There is this whole psychological safety and lean culture side of things, but that's really putting a patch on the true problem or the root cause of the problem. And that's because we have designed systems as construction leaders that are hurting our people, that are making it impossible for our people to operate within the conditions that we have set. And we've got to realize that. And the issue is we're not the ones that are directly affected by that. We're
Yes.
indirectly affected.
Yes.
So then you start thinking, okay, what can I do in order to make the indirect effect more direct? And so that's when you start getting into systems thinking. And I'll draw it there because I don't want to get too far into those weeds. But I heard two things that I'm pulling out of that is the first one is in order to have a perfect schedule, you really need a solid understanding of what systems thinking is.
Yes.
Then I heard you say you also need to figure out how to merge a lean culture with a lean system.
Can I do something with that?
Yeah, I hope you will.
I don't have a great analogy, and I know we got to be done in 4 or 5 minutes, but this is the best analogy I have at the top of my mind. And I'm not comparing dogs to trade partners or people by any means. We hear a lot about dog fighting or cockfighting or things like that. And so I was reading a book recently, and so it's been on my mind about the animal testing and like people being abusive to animals. There are places. The reason I like to use this analogy for now is because there was a dog that was in a canal over here by where I lived, and this wasn't me. It was one of the missionaries that was serving in our ward. The dog was drowning, and he tried to get the dog out, but every time the dog would get out on solid ground, the dog would bite him. And so they would jump back, and the dog would then go down and drown, and they'd try and get him out again. And every time the dog would try and bite. And why? Somebody could be like, that stupid dog. Like, why would you trying to save him? It's their fault. Yeah, I could save you, but blah, blah, blah. But what happened to that dog before it fell into the canal? Abused, out in the cold, starved, beaten, made to fight, all of these things. And in some respects, I think that the listening, collaborative, vulnerable psychological safety is a more important topic than the things that I talk about most of the time. But here's my point. We can keep rehabilitating dogs, but at some point we need to stop abusing them in the first place. And so that gave me chills when I said that. The concept here is that I want to gently tell the industry without shaming anyone or making them feel bad, but still driving action, that we are, through our systems, abusing human beings. It is our fault. It's us. We have to stop it. And we're good enough to change it. And the reason it's good that it's our fault is because we can do something about it. And I would say that I am overwhelmed, just to close my part of this out, I'm overwhelmed with appreciation for the trades companies and foremen and workers that make this happen in spite of the environment and the treatment they get. And I have only, as a consultant, I've only seen a little bit, like 1,000th of the bad behavior that they experience. And I'm telling you that 1/1000th is enough, or it's almost enough to make me be like, I can't do it. Like mentally, I can't do it. And so my message is, one in construction, I love you. I'm not trying to shame you. I'm not trying to do anything like that. I'm trying to say it's us. We're the problem. It's me. And that our buildings are getting built by these craft and workers in spite of us. And that not only are they not stupid and uneducated and lazy, they're actually wonderful, bright, brilliant, beautiful people, but they are continuing to stay with us in spite of the abuse. And if we want to stay married in this relationship, we are going to have to get ourselves reined in and stop abusing others in this relationship. And I'm going to continue to look for ways to say that so that we can so that we can all together fix this problem.
Oh man, shout out all those men and women tradespeople that are out there getting it done day in and day out. Again, in spite of the systems that we, like you said, I'll own some of that as well, as construction leaders have designed against you. You're still knocking it out. You're still making it happen and doing it with smiles and just loving life. Thank you. I think that's such a
Thank you.
thankless job, right? And so yeah, shout man. And I believe tax planning is the way. I do agree with you. I see a huge future in tax planning. I think that's going to solve a lot of issues for a lot of people, a lot of companies. I would love to spend maybe the last couple minutes. Let's shout out some of our tax homies that are out there, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. You mean the people in the industry that are making a difference?
Yeah, or our
Well,
lean tact homies too. We got some pretty awesome people that I actually work with you guys quite a bit over at Lean Tact, and I'd love to shout out some of those folks as well.
yeah, I'll give a couple of shout outs and then you can. It's your show. You can do whatever you want. But like,
Yeah.
we got 16 brilliant people over there that work really hard and work with clients. They are, and some people, and I hope nobody ever says, oh, hey, Jason and them have outsourced and to do scheduling. Actually, what happened was we were attempting to hire in the US and we stumbled on this. And these people in Mexico and in Colombia that work with us in Lean Tact literally graduated from like one of the top 10 universities in the world, are brilliant, speak multiple languages, and are like literally engineers. Some of them are going through their master's programs, and they are making it happen. And we pray every leadership meeting we have. And Kevin, the other day, we always say, hey, what revelation did you get since the last time or just now in the prayer? And one time he teary eyed was like, what I feel is like these PIEs, the process improvement engineers, will affect the lives of thousands of people. And I just felt it. And it was just great. And I also just want to quickly shout out people out there like Marco and Janos and Charlie and Fabian with Timoti and Nicholas Modig. And just there are people that through their brilliance, we now have all the component parts to understand this. And I literally could not respect them more. They're just fantastic. And so, Adam, what are some shout outs you got, homie?
I'll shout you out, man, for going and picking up all these pieces and putting them together. And the things that, again, you're doing with Elevate and Lean Tact and Lean Foreman and Lean Senior Superintendent, Lean Field, like Lean Survey. it's quite amazing. Definitely shout out Mr. Kevin Rice. He's a game changer. He's one of those guys who are under the radar and makes everything happen while Jason's face is over here getting posted everywhere.
Yeah, I get all the credit, but there's a lot behind it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I want to say that the YouTube and marketing experts have steered us to have one face be for a comfort level, but it's not actually my desire. Like I'd showcase people all the time, but from a marketing, get the reach out there more. We've been told by multiple people, let them get comfortable with one person, but then do what you're doing, like shout them out. And so I want you to know if it wasn't for trying to get the message out, we would have a lot of faces.
No doubt. And we all know who the boss is over there, Miss Katie Schroeder. We know.
That's
But yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. I guess any closing words or any final thoughts, mic drops on designing a perfect schedule?
um, let's just go back to the craft. Is that for anybody who's listening who either leads craft workers or foremen or workers or anybody, I'm talking to the workers directly, the people that make it happen, the people that are up late, the people running projects, the engineers, the field engineers, the workers, the iron workers. I just want you to know, I want you here. I appreciate you. Like Adam said, he did a better job than I am, but I want you here. And I want to officially say, for whatever my part is, and also on behalf of the industry, I'm sorry that these systems haven't suited you. I'm sorry that you've had to be in bathrooms that without toilet paper. I'm sorry that you haven't had a place to eat lunch. I'm sorry that there's some times where you don't make it home to your kids. And I want you to know that when we come and try and teach or share things, it's done from a place of genuine love and care and concern because we want to fix it, because we want you here and we want to make it right. And so I want to say that I am sorry and that we can do this together to the point that we all want to encourage our children to be in this industry because it has done so much for me. I love building things. I feel like it's a part of my DNA. And I am overwhelmed with respect for the men and women who make it happen in the field. And that is my closing message. So, a perfect schedule to me is a schedule that will protect you. And that's what we are striving for. And that's my message.
I love it. And by the way, thank you, the users, the listeners. You set up a discount code. They can use my name to get some discounts off of your services
Yep.
as well over there at Elevate Construction. So definitely take advantage of that. Go check him out. Mr. Jason Schroeder, always a pleasure to have you around.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
On we go.